and welcome to the Earth Art TV podcast. My name is Richard Shilling and I am your host this week. Joining me from the regular crew is my other half, Julia, who I forgot to introduce in the episode itself. This did not go unnoticed, as you will hear, along with James and Caroline. Mark and Rebecca were unable to join us due to their very busy work schedule, and we're looking forward to catching up with them the next time around. Joining us is the one and only James Craig Page, maverick artist and friend from Dunbar, Scotland, who is the director of the European Stone Stacking Championships and ELAF, the European Land Art Festival. In the first part, we talk about people who have inspired us in our lives and what those people mean to us, before moving on in the second part to talk to James Page about his fascinating and inspirational story, how he became a painter in the 90s, and then how upon seeing the work of Michael Grab, also known as Gravity Glue, online one day, how it triggered off a series of events which culminated in the festival he's now directs in Dunbar. This year, the Llano Earth Art Festival, also known as LEAF in Texas, did not go ahead as the path of the total solar eclipse passed through the town at the usual time it is held. LEAF is the venue for the World Stone Stacking Championships, and this year Dunbar and James are going to host the Worlds on LEAF's behalf, drawing in competitors from around the globe. So without further ado, I bring you the inspiration episode. Welcome to the Earth Art TV podcast. I'm your host this week, Richard Shilling, and this week we have with us James and Caroline.
Hello.
Hello. Rebecca and Mark unable to join us this week because they're very, very busy. But we have a very special guest. I'd like to welcome the one and only James Craig Page.
Hello.
Woo!
Nice to see you.
Hey.
Woo. Yes, woo. Definitely some woo. Now, in the second part of the podcast, we're going to talk at length with James about the festivals that he's put together. He's the director of the European Land Art Festival, and I believe this year, because of the solar eclipse that passed right through Llano, where the World Stone Stacking Championship normally happens every year, because that was happening, they weren't able to put on the LEAF Festival this year.
Such a shame.
James has very kindly become the host for 2024 of the World Stone Stacking Championships. So in the second part, we'll talk to James all about that and his life in general, which is quite interesting. So
looking at that grin on your face.
This episode. Yeah, no swearing. We might have children listening at some point, so we might have to. He doesn't care. Well, we can make it an adult only episode for sure. So we thought this episode we would talk about inspiration and not necessarily to do with our art careers, but things, people, places, encounters that have inspired us in general. So I'll kick you off with one. When I was at primary school, I went to a really little primary school in a place called Benenden in Kent. There's a famous girls' school there, posh girls' school that Princess Anne went to. That was not the same school. So we're at this tiny little primary school, 100 kids, and in whatever the second from oldest class, I don't know how they make those, like 5th year, 6th year, 4th year, we had a teacher called Mr. Dougal, and the only things we ever learnt was playing the guitar. So every kid bought a £20 classical nylon strung guitar, and every single lesson we'd all come in. I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about recording this podcast. So one of the special things about it, every day we would come in with our guitar in a case. So there's all these 8-year-olds all coming in, 30 of us, with a guitar in a case, and we'd come in and we'd get it out, and he had transcribed all these 60s songs with very easy chords and the words, and for the entire year we just all get our guitars out and sit and play the guitar and sing these 60s songs. and that's about the only bit of school that I really remember. And just kind of like, the rest of the school was, you were kind of learning the stuff I did anyway. You were kind of learning stuff to see how, what job you were going to get later in life, or there was very little about what are you interested in, or what would what would expand your mind as a human being. So
this is
he really
very,
inspired
very
me.
different school to I went to, Richard. The only thing we brought in on any regular, anything with any regularity was Panini football stickers and 2 pences to gamble
we had a bit
with.
Of that too. I don't think. I mean, to be fair to the school, I don't think Mr. Dougal's style of thing was usual. I think everything else was pretty much the same. It sort of makes it sound like I went to a mad school, but he was almost like one of those, you could see a Disney kids film being made where Mr. Dougal would fly in and and he'd work his way around different primary schools around the country, and he didn't really exist, and he was a bit magical, and he would just come in and who was that guy, and to have that effect on people. That's kind of how it felt.
That was quite an inspiring teacher.
So
yeah. That's really
as
nice.
teachers go, I mean, most of them are. He's the one that I really remember because I still love playing the guitar now, and
I don't remember any of my teachers from
everything
primary
else
school
that I
at
learned.
all. No teachers from
No,
really
neither,
not at all.
Apart from one.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
I remember my first primary teacher, Miss Hunter, and she is still kicking about Dunbar now. And she must be in her late 90s, and she walks from the care home to get her shopping every day. And when I was in primary 1, at the age of 5 or 6, she looked very old then. I'm an old man now myself. I think she may have signed her soul over to the devil, the fact that she's still going. It's incredible. Every day I'm astonished to see her walking up and down the high street from primary school.
Well, there's inspiration
And
right
she
there.
she did introduce me to stamp collecting at a very early age. Funnily enough, that's just come back to me, and I did have quite an affinity with that for a while, actually. That's just come back to me just now, actually.
Aww.
Yeah, so
you've not spoken to her to see what pact she has made with the devil? 'Cause I'm sure you'd be first in the queue.
No. I've made a pact with Jesus now. No, she actually, this Miss Hunter actually went to lip reading classes with my mum over just before lockdown came along and stuff like that. They were going to lip reading classes together, and I couldn't believe it. They were having conversations. And my mum, talking to her, going, "You taught my son, primary 1 or whatever." And yeah, they're conversing still. So, yeah.
That's
People
amazing.
are quite
That is
inspirational.
That's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
I should have got to know my teachers a bit better.
She looked.
Yeah. You at least remember them.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I can... A vague memory of one being quite scary. I miss Bissett, but she played cricket. That's the only thing I remember about her. She was
All right,
quite
wow.
good at cricket, I think. But she was quite scary, so I didn't particularly like her. So I wasn't inspired by her
It's
at
not
all.
necessarily going the direction that
Well,
we'll turn this into the primary school experience podcast.
but then,
Rather
moving
than
on to secondary
inspirational
school, I had an
stories.
amazingly inspiring teacher. Once again, at secondary school, I just tried to fit in with people. And I wasn't particularly academic, but walking into my art class, it was like I was a different person. And that was down to that one teacher, really, that made me feel like an adult and that I mattered. And I think, he was hugely inspiring.
That's good.
Yeah.
In secondary school for me, it was the technical drawing teacher. I personally couldn't technically draw for toffee, so to speak. I remember doing a technical drawing exam where they asked you to draw the front elevation of a house, and I literally drew like a childlike box house with square windows like a playhouse, and drew a chimney on it and had no clue. I was just like, I'm sorry. But he did teach me how to play chess, and he was an
very
amazing
important.
chess teacher.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And recently I've been playing a lot of chess with my son, and I've been thinking about Mr. Barnes. He was from Australia originally, Didn't teach me anything about technical drawing, taught me everything about chess, and loved him for that.
I have a great chess
Yeah.
story from university. The principal of my college, Byramshaw School of Art in London, at the beginning of the day, he'd walk around all the studios, and I had a chessboard set up, and I used to play him. And it was like one
wow.
move a day, and he went on his daily walks. He would walk in, peruse the board, make his move, and just walk out. And then I'd have the rest of the day to think about my move. And we used to play for months on end.
Excellent. I've been playing with Sterling Gregory recently on chess.com and with my son Tom as well. We will get the board set up in the Dolphin, I'm sure.
Excellent. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, despite me setting this episode as the inspiration episode, I'm trying to think, when we don't talk about art stuff, who else I found. I didn't do my own homework. Do you think of any inspiring stories?
Am I allowed to speak? You did introduce me.
Oh.
Well, I think I have to cut that bit out. Blimey.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Just do it now, it'll be
I thought that
fine.
was quite
Hi, Julia.
It's like, oh, okay.
No, I didn't like any of my teachers at school. Hated school. Never want to go back to school or even think about school. So I can't think of anyone that inspired
Available
me
for
at
bookings
school
for school's
whatsoever.
work.
Well, what about elsewhere?
Elsewhere, my mum inspired me.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
She was a really kind person, really funny. They used to have students to help pay with the mortgage. So we used to have foreign students arrive every 3 months or so. Now, my sister and I actually always used to hate it, but in hindsight, we did enjoy it really. And my mum used to do all the cooking. We always used to sit around the table, us as a family, the four of us, plus probably 3 students. And my mum and I always used to get the fit of the giggles. And no matter, every evening, for some reason, something that somebody would say would set us off. And we had to go in the kitchen and we'd be bent over double, holding our stomachs from laughing and tears running down our face. She was just the funniest, nicest person
lovely.
that you'd ever want to meet. Really
Aw,
kind. Yeah.
very
That
nice.
is really
What
I
nice.
hope I'm like her.
Caroline?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'd kind of not thought about it in terms of people, actually, which is a bit weird. And I definitely hadn't
No,
thought
it's
about
not
it in
weird.
terms of school teachers, but I do, and I would say initially I kind of thought I can't think of a school teacher, but I do think definitely one that needs a mention is Jude Cole, because
I knew you were going to say
it's like, I know, well, that's it. And she only taught me late on in sixth form, but she was one of the few teachers that I ever came across that actually just spoke to me like another person, another adult, rather than she never, ever spoke down to anybody. She was absolutely in amongst you, working with you, and she was awesome for that, and that's why we're still friends with her now, and that's why you kind of ended up doing some work.
I did a
with her.
piece
She was
of
an
work with
English
them.
teacher, but
Yeah.
she taught me for drama, and she was ace.
Yeah, I didn't go to
Absolutely
the same
brilliant.
school, but I did
No,
know,
so you wouldn't have known her as a teacher, but, you know, I introduced you to her sort of later on, and yeah, you did a nice
we collaborated
collaboration
on a piece of work together.
piece with her. She's a brilliant writer, and
Yeah.
and was just right for a project that you were doing. So that I for people, definitely Jude. But also, I also, just as you guys were talking, I was thinking, I had a flashback to when we first moved back up north from London. I went to work for a design agency within Boots the Chemist, and one of the questions in the interview was, who is your hero? And I can remember, like, sitting in this interview when I was asked that, who's your hero? And I had a real little panic, almost said Madonna, and then kind of went, no, don't say that in a job interview, it's probably not right. And bearing in mind I was only like 23, 24, something like that. And then I sort of gave it another minute and thought about it, and I still think this now, but I said Mark Rothko, because what I really love is how Mark Rothko can communicate a whole lot of stuff in a really simple way. And I do think that's what got me the job, because that's what the job was.
Right,
That's what
okay.
design is.
Interesting.
It's communicating
Yeah.
a whole lot of complicated
Yeah.
stuff in not very
in
much
colour.
information. And I love Mark
Yeah.
Rothko now, but
Well, I think
you know,
I think
I
that's
love
really
that.
interesting, just to then sort of bring the whole conversation around to pieces of art that have really inspired you. And I would say, for me, it was seeing Francis Bacon's work for the first time and standing directly in front of it was incredible, an incredible moment.
When was that? Do you remember the first time you did?
Oh, it was probably. I mean, not early. I think it was probably when we moved down to London. So that would have been about '94, and I think it was probably kind of going around the Tate. I may have seen one earlier, but not really noticed it and connected with it at that point. But I think as soon as we moved to London, and this whole art world that I didn't really know existed kind of opened up. It was knowing a bit about Francis Bacon's like non-art background and just the sort of his dedication to this lifestyle in this cause, then actually seeing in the flesh the results of that kind of dedication was pretty breathtaking.
Yeah.
So was it kind of a mind expanding moment where you saw like the potential of do you know what I mean? Like you can have like a worldview change where there's before and after, where you kind of saw.
I think I was
Did
well
it
on.
fit into
I was well on
something
the
you
path
already
to
thinking
becoming an
about?
artist. You know, I'd been through kind of college in here in Yorkshire. It was, I think, not having that access from studying in Rotherham to having it all on your doorstep when you get to London, and these things you'd only seen in books. It wasn't even computers back then. It was just books, old worn, battered books, and then actually seeing the actual works in the flesh. And I think it's that. I think that's the start of a journey of kind of like, yes, you as a kid you could draw, and you had an interest in it, and you had this passion for it, and you did it, but then you had to then accept this kind of like all this other baggage of the art world into your mind, and actually say there's more to this than just being able to produce something. You've got to sort of like immerse yourself in this world of other people's work and other people's output and other people's, and let that sink in somehow. And it was never kind of, I don't think I ever, or maybe I did, but I don't think I made loads of, I ever tried to sort of be influenced by him. It was just being inspired by the artist and then seeing that person's output really close up. It was something.
So James P.
yeah.
You're not just the director of the European Land Art Festival. You're a pretty amazing kind of surrealist painter.
I guess I am a self-taught artist. I started painting around 1997, and it was a way of keeping me out the bookies at the time. I'd got myself a wee gambling addiction, and I decided one day I'd been given a whole load of paper from my brother-in-law at the time, and I'd taken the last of my dole money and went to the Early Learning Centre, St James's in Edinburgh, and bought myself some big tubes of poster paint. And that night I just decided to staple these huge sheets of paper together and decided to just play like a child but splatter this paint around and get a wee bit tipsy and just enjoying the process of moving paint around like a child. And I woke up in the morning and I suddenly saw all these faces looking out at me from this painting, and I was like, no way did I paint that last night. I can see faces. How is that? And I literally just got a paintbrush in black and outlined the shapes that I was seeing. I was like, is that how it's done? Is that how you actually paint pictures? Because it looked something quite real. Or I was like, I don't know how, I really don't know how I done that. But I was just like, that's given me the inspiration to just keep on playing like a child. And I did. And about a year later, after being unemployed for that year, after being made redundant from a gardening job, I was then going to a job club. And we had to sit in a job club and learn how to write letters to employers and stuff. And literally after a day, I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this anymore. And the guy's like, you'll get your dole money stopped. If you leave now, son, that's you. I had no money in my pocket. I left there. I hitchhiked back to Dunbar. I booked the local library for my first exhibition. And about 3 months later, I had all this work that I'd lying around my flat and that, put it up on the walls. I sold 6 paintings at my first exhibition and thought, oh my God, I'm going to be an artist. Let's just keep on doing this. And I've not looked back. And I've been getting away with it ever since. And it's like, I still can't believe that, that was a leap of faith. And, I wasn't selling it for a lot of money. I think £60 was the most I sold one for, but £20 or whatever. And at the time, that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money for me. And that's kind of where it started. And then I guess I just kept on going. And then, and then eventually the land art stuff did come along. And I kind of went on a wee journey that took me from painting into trying out sculpture and stone balancing and these other art forms as well, I guess. Yeah.
What an amazing
We'll
journey.
definitely talk about that in part 2. But yeah, I love the fact that you just had like a moment with the paint and kind of made like a symbiotic connection with it overnight.
Yeah.
And then that sparked off.
And at that time it was just watercolour paint. And then I remember maybe 2 or 3 years later, I'd run out of paint and I was going round all my aunties' garages and their sheds and they all had household paint and gloss paint lying about. I was like, yeah, I'll have that. Filled my kitchen, filled with tins of paint and just got out and started experimenting with that. And then I realised that the gloss paint going into each other started to bleed out and again create shapes and patterns that I was just fascinated with. And I remember the time, and for a long time I worked in really colourful stuff. And just like a child in primary colours, it's always just been yellow, yellow, blue, red and green and black and white and pretty much all my, I like the basics. And I remember it was 2007 and I'd just come out of a challenging relationship. And I remember having bought 2 tins of gloss paint, one black, one white. And I had some chopsticks and I had found a couple of plastic syringes lying under my sink or something. And I decided to experiment, put the paint on the chopsticks and just drip this down and then use some of the black and white paint in a syringe. And I remember pouring it out and just watching it and going, oh my God, look at the detail in that. And it was like literally watching a movie happening. And I was like, wow, I've never been able to paint in detail. Do you think I can get away with this? And I'll just keep doing this, using this technique, and everybody will think I can paint in this really delicate sort of way now, And I was just smashing them out, and there's loads that, I literally made I made a film at the time called Watching Paint Dry. And I spent the next year literally watching paint dry every night and mixing it up. And yeah, that was part of the journey and what then became the Church of Gloss thing and how people used to come up to the house.
Which is James's house, by the way.
Experiment paint. Yeah, that's the name. And it's also the name of my art collective, which I started with Callum Easter, the musician and songwriter. And that's been, kind of evolving ever since. So.
One of our favourite things about Dunbar is the fact that you get in there and you keep seeing these little snippets and you think, is that a James Craig page? And they're just about in the town. And as you see more of them and then all of a sudden there's 2 together and there's a bit more and it leads you to your house because they're just, as they get closer to your house,
like
there's
a
more
trail
of
of gloss breadcrumbs.
Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah, I love it. I love that.
I love your passion.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And I think at the time it was just a case of right, I've no more space in my house, I'd be as well just putting them out. At least I've got more space to paint on, because it literally just was pouring through me, or for whatever reason, it was just my way of dealing with being unemployed, not knowing what I was going to do for work, but also just having something new to focus on and to kind of just, I guess, get passionate about. I'd never been into art at school. I couldn't draw at school or anything like that, but somehow through colour and the paint itself was the thing that really mattered, that I was able to somehow channel the colours and also with the gloss into something more than its individual components or whatever. I don't know.
I remember asking
Alchemy.
you about
It was some kind of alchemy.
all your pictures that you put up around Dunbar. I remember asking you about whether you get permission to do that, and you said sort of like I put them up and then I asked permissions afterwards. I thought that was lovely.
Yes. I think the second time I did go to the police and said, look, I'm just going to admit it right now. They're my paintings. If you want to arrest me, that's fine. But you know who we are. I'm just trying to colour up the streets where there's disused spaces. And I think it was Anthony Gormley had done a thing. Or you know what it was? I was watching a documentary. It was about this mayor in Romania. And the place, his town had become really dishevelled. And there was lots of people putting up houses that shouldn't have been there. He decided to knock all these illegal buildings down and got the consent of the locals to actually just paint the buildings that they had and transform the town through colour. And he literally did this, and slowly but surely people started to take a pride in the place. And then slowly but surely people actually used to come to visit. And then from that, this whole tourist industry developed literally from him putting colour into the environment. And now with most planning permission and all the rest of it, a lot of things are just beige and dull colours and there's no individuality. And I think sometimes, and especially these days, we need a splashy colour in our lives and just something to inspire and something to, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Something nice to come across, just something,
I think colour's a big inspiration
It's
for
like
me
that
too.
in Morecambe,
I think
isn't
that's
it?
Yeah.
I need colour in order to be okay, happy, together, whatever. Colour's brilliant, isn't it?
But isn't it the whole
Yeah.
things about planning and how we've developed in terms of sort of like our living space and habitation? How many tricks have we missed along the way to end up where we are now? We literally had all these ideas and all this imagination and all this sense of fun at our fingertips, and we've just gone down a different route completely.
Yeah, well, there's pockets of it, isn't there, all over the place of people, their creativity bursting out, and it has that effect to inspire everybody around them, and it kind of spreads. But the places where that isn't there, it's depressing. Yeah. But we're trying to, this podcast about inspiring people. So
I had
these pools of colour that are spreading out.
Yeah. No, I had a similar I'm saying a similar experience. I was in the town of Paisley near Glasgow on Saturday to watch my nephew in his first kickboxing fight. I used to be a boxer myself, so it was quite it was an interesting experience to go along to that. However, once I got there, I wasn't that keen on actually going in. And I don't know why, but I just backed off and I thought, no, I'm going to go for a walk first. And I walked maybe 200 or 300 yards into the town of Paisley and suddenly came across this 12th century cathedral or abbey, Paisley Abbey, that I never knew existed. And it was just suddenly transported back in time with the amazing architecture and just how the skills of these workmen to do that and to create such an immense building at that time. And I'm sure it would have been added to after that. But it was such a juxtaposition to what was actually going on round about me and with people in the town and stuff like that. And it did make me think a lot about just, the environment round about us and how we engage with it and what we have got these days, to inspire us as well,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think on that note, we will take a break and we'll be back in a moment. Welcome back and to part 2 of the Earth Art TV podcast. And as I said in part 2, we're going to talk to our special guest, James Craig Page, about the events that he puts on in his hometown of Dunbar. That's near Edinburgh for our international listeners. And there's quite an interesting story how James has gone from seeing a picture by our good friend Michael Grab online in 2016, I believe, and that really sparked off some really quite amazing things that's culminated in James now being the director of the European Land Art Festival, and as I said in the first part, is actually going to be hosting the World Stone Stacking Championships this year in July. So over to you, James.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So back in, I think it was late 2015, a young friend of mine sent me a video, I think from YouTube, and it was this guy, Gravity Glue, and I looked at it and went, no chance, absolutely no chance, mate, and immediately just kind of got up out of my seat and thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and see if that actually is a thing or if it works. And so I went down to the East Beach in Dunbar and started putting one stone on top of the other, just fairly, flat, square stones, whatever, just to get a start. And I remember the first stone that was a wee bit tricky clicking into place and going, just totally lit me up like a lightning bolt, and I couldn't stop. And it was like literally like my next new addiction. And from having the addiction in my teenage years with gambling, I then went on to painting, and then that moment of the stone clicking into place was the birth of my new addiction into stone stacking and stone balancing. And in the initial stages, it was all about just putting one stone on top of the other like a kid and seeing how high I could make them. And it was just all about towers. It wasn't really about technical difficulty at first. It was just to see how far I could go. Done that.
So that was literally within 1 hour of seeing a video of Michael's. I needed to prove it, or I needed to at least know that it wasn't just it was some sort of magic, right enough, but that it was just what it was.
Very similar.
And
I saw somebody in the south coast of England, Adrian Gray. But he was very standoffish. He didn't really want to talk to people. It was all about the magic.
Yeah.
And I think 99% of people went away going, look at that, that's magic. And then I just went away going, that's science, and I understand it. And I did exactly the same. I just went,
right.
I'm going to do that. And then I think a day later I was on a beach with two friends. And I've always said, sort of like, if I'd not managed, I got two stones that were balanced quite on a little sort of balancing point, and we were there struggling away for ages. And if I'd not got those two stones balanced at that point, my journey would have been completely different, because I'd have probably gone, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
And I would have never gone down this path.
Wow. Yeah.
Same thing's still happening, isn't it? I mean, we'll move on more of your story in a second, James, but I was on Instagram today, like most days, and you see new names you've not heard of, and they'll have a picture and it'd be a similar thing to Michael's, and everybody there's that inspiration's happening all over the place where somebody sees something and they have to know, they have to monkey see, monkey do, they have to get their minds their hands around it.
Well, Richard, the other day, I know part of the story, but of putting the European Championships and the Land Art Festival together. The other day there, unfortunately, we had been turned down for a major funding proposal. It was with Creative Scotland. They had run out of funding, unfortunately. And to say that my heart was low was, is an underestimate. It's put things in a very challenging position. However, I went down the beach and I started to stack a stone, and then I started to build a fire cairn. And this was down at the Eye Cave Beach where the championships up until last year have always been held. And these two young lads, maybe around the age of 12, 10, 12, I just seen them coming along the beach, and then out of nowhere, they were obviously watching, they started stacking stones. I'm like, no way are they stacking stones. So I let them do their thing and went across, and I was telling them all about the championships and that we were hosting the World Championships, and they're like, oh really, okay. I was like, have you done this before? And he says, oh, we've seen somebody doing it around here, but we just seen what you were doing, and we thought we'd give it a go. And I was like, yes, this is good. Right, okay. So I went back to doing the fire cairn and, just attend to that. Well, the next thing, this young lad and his friend had got a branch of driftwood, planked it into the sand, and then started balancing stones on top of that. And it was like something that I had done back in the day. And I was just like, that's amazing, the creativity coming out of these lads. Then they took this plank and then jammed it between two big rocks, and they actually managed to balance about 3 or 4 big stones on it. And I went straight up to them, I was like, lads, I reckon if you're going for the World Championships this year, you're going to come in top 3, easy. And they were like, no way, really? He turns round to his mate, and he goes, are we coming down the morning then? He goes, straight away, I'll be here at 9 o'clock, mate. So they had already, just like that.
Brilliant.
And after the disappointment of what Creative Scotland knocked me back, it was like, that was sent for me to go, just keep going, James. This is actually, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
And they went away with joy. And today, the young lad, his name is Adam Peffers, got in touch with me. He goes, can you please sign me up for the championships? I'll be there.
Shame
and
on
I was
you,
like, that's
Creative
it.
Scotland.
That's yeah.
Shame on you.
Well,
Yeah.
I know. Well, hopefully. Well,
But back to your
hopefully
story,
they'll-
James. Back to your story. So
I know.
this year, where you've got the hosting the Worlds, well, how many years have you been doing the festival? How did it start?
So, yeah.
How did
well,
this
I get-
passion
it
of just being on a
started in
beach? How did it become an event?
So it was actually through one of my good friends, Stephen Hill, who runs a Dunbar T-shirt shop in Dunbar, and he supported my festival from the start. And it was actually initially a conversation that we had, and he was like, do you think we could turn the stone stacking into a competition sort of thing? And I was like, no, that's not what it's about. And he goes, look, James, let's just think about this. If we can do that, or if we can bring that element in, perhaps we could introduce people or get some funding and raise an event. Well, not long after that, the John Muir Trust came to us and said, look, it's John Muir Centenary. Would you like to maybe host an event? You're connected with nature and stuff. Would you like to host an event as part of the John Muir Centenary? It's his 100-year anniversary. And I was like, I'd love to do that. So we decided to try a wee competition. It was just a couple of events. I think I made them up as I went along. And we had an artistic competition and the quantity event, I think. And we were just amazed at how many people turned up and how many people were smiling and the joy that they got from it. And we put on some music beside it and stuff, or beside the event. I thought, yeah, okay. And we just sat with it for a bit, and then later on, I think the next again year, it was 2017, I think then I had heard about the World Championships in Llano in Texas. And at the time, I wasn't thinking of, I certainly wasn't thinking of the European Championships. I was thinking, maybe we could call the next year, we could call it the Scottish Championships or something like that. And the strangest thing happened. One night, I was just lying in my bed and I was just drifting off to sleep, and the clearest thought, you're going to have the European Championships. And I was like, what? Okay. The next thing, I left it 2 or 3 days later. It's going to be the European Championships. It's not the Scottish Championships. I was like, all right, where's that coming from? The next thing, I got a third call, and I was like, right, that's it. I'm just going to call it European Stone Stacking Championships. It kind of ties in. There's a World Championships. Why not bring the whole of Europe to Dunbar, or do the Europe thing? and I think I put it out on Facebook or put it on social media, and it suddenly became a thing. And within an hour, somebody had contacted me. I can't remember who it was now, but had written to me and said, "I can't believe you've just done this. I was about to call the European Championship somewhere else." And I was like, no, like, unbelievable.
Really?
What? Well, and I was like, well, I'm sorry, it's mine now. So it was like somehow destined to come to Dunbar. But it was like I had to eventually call it, and timing is everything, I guess, but that's just kind of how it fell.
Do you know who that
into
person
place.
was?
And initially, I
And have they been?
don't know if it's right to mention his name, but I think I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there.
Out
Leave it
later.
there. Leave it there.
I don't know why I'm being so coy about it. I just don't
Offline,
want to mention it
maybe.
in case it's a thing. But anyway,
But you do know them.
I do know them. I do know them. I do know.
Okay. Do we know them?
Anyway.
Stop it.
Yes, I think they did come to the championships in the early stages, in the earliest days, or the first couple actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and initially, I guess it was like a 2-day festival, but I do remember. I've always had this thing. I don't know at what point it was, James, that I remember you coming up with and meeting you and Sterling Gregory on the Eye Cave Beach,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that was pre 2018. Because we used to have the festival in April, as the European Stone Sacking Championships, and it was part of because it was the John Muir Festival and his birthday is the 21st of April. We used to host it in April, but we realised after a couple of years how cold it was and it wasn't always the best weather in April or whatever. And I guess
I've never been to
we
it,
did develop it.
I've never been to anywhere in Dunbar when it's not been sunny. It's always sunny, doesn't it?
Absolutely, now it is. I have to pray very hard for that every year, but it does seem to happen for some reason. Yeah.
It's because you're a
No,
really
we've been
good
very
boy.
blessed with. We've been very blessed with the weather. That's all I'm going to say. We've
Yeah.
been blessed with the weather. Yeah.
So where does Texas fit into this? Because I think the first time I started to notice you and what you were doing was that your first visit to Texas and the pictures that came from there were amazing.
I think it was Texas 2017. I think I went into 2017 I did go.
Yeah.
And then 2018 was just
That was our
the most
first.
amazing thing. That was what?
That was
Yeah.
Your first.
our first.
That was that and ours as well.
18 was. I have such a strong memory of walking into the festival site and 5 grown men playing with piles of stones in the festival site and just going, this is amazing. There's people that actually get it just the same as me, and it was quite inspiring at that time just to be part of Leaf and what was going on.
I imagine 2017 was a lot smaller than 2018.
I for a wee bit of time I'd been communicating with Sterling Gregory, and I think it was to go and meet up with Sterling initially at the festival, and it was just sort of dipping their toes in, I guess, to and Michael was there, and Tim Anderson and David Allen. I think they were the 3 main people at that time, but
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
very inspirational. Yeah, it was.
Amazing stories.
So James, what keeps you going in doing this?
Those 2 lads on the beach.
Exactly that, James,
Yeah.
and just it just feels like the right thing to do is what I would say, and I tend to trust my instincts, and it is just such a challenge when it doesn't feel like it's getting supported. However, it is getting supported, and it's getting supported by you guys. It's getting supported by all the artists, and overcoming adversity has been part of my lifelong artistic sort of career, and just managing with very little. And there's something beautiful and profound about just managing with a pile of stones and some good friends, some good crack, and actually bringing people together, and the magic that happens from that, and just the joy of people being together and creating in nature. It's like, you can't put a price on that. And if people don't value that, that's just down to their lack of imagination or their lack of business or whatever it is. And not everybody gets it. I understand that, but I think generally we've proved. And James, you have done it by going on to do Land Sand Stone, and now Sean with Talib in Ireland, and all the things that have blossomed from that, you know. And it was Lawrence Winram, who's been a joy of a guy to work with, and Aaron, who have now got on board with the European Land Art Festival to really support me. And that's part of it as well, that at the right times the right people come along and just keep on helping you to keep going, and that is kind of what it is. And it's just like a really human effort with good people making good things happen. And you know,
That's everything,
maybe one
isn't
day,
it?
one day somebody will appreciate that and do something about sponsoring us or whatever. But until then, we'll have a great time, and we will inspire the world.
That's it.
And that's exactly what we do.
Can
we inspire
you
the
tell
world.
me something about how you feel when you look across the beach of your hometown and you see it packed with people all engrossed in what they're doing?
It brings literally joy, like tears of joy. And another thing that happened, when I first started going down to the Eye Cave beach, and because Michael had been such a big inspiration, I think it was in 2 years ago, or I can't remember, I think it was 2021 he came down, and I had always had this really big vision. I was like, one day Michael Grab will be in the Eye Cave and he'll be stacking a stone. I've no idea how that's going to happen, but let's see what happens. And see when he did it. And he made the most amazing documentation of it and got the most beautiful photograph. And it was just like, that's why you do it, James. That was actually one of the goals, was somehow to get Michael Grab to come down. And it could have happened about a year before, but he got distracted with a young lady somewhere. And, and eventually... And I was like, no way, coming Dunbar. He's like, I've just met her. Anyway, I met somebody. And so when it happened. And it was just like amazing. And wee moments like that are the inspiration that just keep you going. And yeah, if you've got a meal on your table and a roof over your head and you can keep creating art every day, somehow it does make it worthwhile. And I encourage everybody to go into nature and to create something, if you can, on a daily basis, just for your own sanity. That's the place to be. It's just in the moment, in nature, being in creation and creating and appreciating it.
Yeah, 100%
Well,
that.
you're a force of nature yourself,
Yeah.
James.
Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things we can talk about. There was the Summer Hall exhibition
Yeah.
that I do believe got exhibition in the week of the week in the Guardian
It did.
newspaper.
Now, I'm sorry to bitch here, but I'm going to tell you another story about how difficult it's been. I applied to East Lothian Art Services to put on that exhibition. I'd never curated a big exhibition on that level, bringing all the world's best stone balancers, land artists, and an amazing collection of people together and their work. And I
Well, for people who are not familiar, the Summer Hall Gallery is a premier gallery. It's not.
It's part of the Edinburgh
it's an important
Festival.
place
It's
in
a
Edinburgh.
historical building. Yeah. And we filled, between us, James, you were there, Richard and Julia, we were all there, Michael, and we filled 5 rooms in the basement, filled with sculpture and all our photographs of our work over the years. Filled the place out, done workshops, free workshops for kids every weekend. I applied for funding for £1,500 as a personal grant to East Lothian Council Art Services to curate my first major exhibition, I got a one-line reply: we don't see this, we can't see this as visual art, so we won't be supporting you.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, dear.
And I called them out, and I got the lady in question. I won't mention her here, but I said, look, if you're saying that this isn't visual arts, I need you to come and see my exhibition, because I'm in poverty here and I'm looking for money to keep me going to actually put this exhibition on. And she eventually, after 2 or 3 phone calls, she eventually conceded. She came up and she started shaking, and she's seen it and went, okay, this is great. Yes, I understand. I'll give you £500 towards the framing. I was like, thank you, that's great. And that was kind of the end of that. That later on that week, we got the best show in Britain in The Guardian, and Richard Long was also on that list, and he was maybe second or third down the line. I'm not joking. I've got the cutting from the
Get
paper.
in.
And so I didn't, and so this has been the challenge, and this has been the thing that, it is a challenge. And back in the day, I was a boxer, and I realised that sometimes when you get knocked down, you have to get back up again. And there's something thrilling about just challenging things when you know you're onto something good, you know you're doing a good thing, to actually just follow your heart and keep it going, and to keep just doing what you're doing. Because at the end of it, there's something beautiful and precious, and you never know when you're making history. And Lawrence Winram says it's like the ripples of kindness that go out. You just don't know where they're going. But every year, all these amazing people come back to Dunbar, fill the beach with beautiful art, and the people of Dunbar love it. Love it now. They all talk about, is it coming this year? Is it coming? Is it coming back? So the local people, the local working class people that come and experience that, and now people from all over the world. There's a guy at the moment cycling from Greece to be here for the championships. He's cycling from Greece.
Oh, wow.
Anthony Duca and his beautiful young son Casper are coming all the way from Australia. I've got guys from Germany and France and all over Europe attending this international festival.
Wow.
Will someone out there lend a hand?
Yeah, please, please.
I can start coming together.
Do you know
Come on.
what's very, very
Come on.
noticeable? What's very, very noticeable in Dunbar is the connection between the event and the town itself and the people.
Yeah.
I think you've nailed that. The way you've got buy-in from the people on the ground, just who it's changed over the years. And I think last year in particular, we went into the Legions, the British Legion Club of the Night. We saw all these people who go in there every night. They have their table. They're dressed up to the nines, and the next day they are on the beach with you, doing their thing as you're doing your thing. And I think the connection you've got with the people of Dunbar now and that event is spot on.
I loved that it was families as well. It was like, there was right up from grandma and granddad right down to the sort of young teenagers or whatever.
I've lived here all my life, and
all there together. No, it was just amazing to see these whole generations all there in one place enjoying it together.
In 2 places, because of the night before they were all in the Legion.
Yeah, both.
That's right, and this year we'll be doing that again. The Vaselines, Callum Easter, Nightcaller Band.
We're big fans, aren't we?
So much joy. I can't wait to bring that all together. And bless them again. That support from international stars coming together and saying, James, we're going to come and do your festival. And I won't tell you what they said. Regards Creative Scotland and stuff, but they said, look, James, we just want to come and support you now. That is amazing what you do. We love what you're doing. And I can't thank them enough as well. So big up the Vaselines and Callum and Nightcaller Band. And
you're the reason they're doing it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I couldn't do it without you. And it has been a massive journey, and just it does feel like growing a family, and it's a really beautiful thing to just see that creativity going out and inspiring hopefully generations to come. And
Yeah.
I feel like we should allow you to
what
say
better,
when
what
is it
better
this
way
year?
to spend your time?
Tell the world when
So
it
it
is.
Come
this
out
year.
with
yes. So the 9th to the 14th of July in sunny Dunny. The Tuesday we'll have the legendary now sandcastle and sand sculpture competition. We'll have on Wednesday we're at Dukes of West Barnes, a new gallery that's open doing stone balancing workshops and demonstrations, and a communal mandala, flower mandala in the garden area. With a pop-up exhibition where there'll be lots of amazing artwork for sale and paintings and so, or certainly photographs and drawings and stuff at Dukes of West Barnes on the Wednesday night. Thursday we'll be at the Woods at Loch End again. Friday we'll be in the High Street with the Ridge Project in the gardens creating mandalas and doing the workshops. And then we'll have the World Championships at the Bayswell Beach Saturday and Sunday, and all the beautifulness that's going on with that. And this year, in memory of our a friend of ours who passed away 2 years ago now, Jonathan Kitching, who came every year to our championships from the very start, who passed away. We're going to have the Jonathan Kitchen Memorial Medal this year, Memorial Trophy, for the best newcomer. And yeah, we're going to introduce some lovely events in memory of all the people that have participated over the years, some that aren't here anymore. So
Fantastic.
yeah, everybody come along to Sunny Dunny and be part of it.
Yeah.
And what about, is there, can we get T-shirts now somewhere, James? Is there something...
Thank you. Yes,
have
there
I
is.
seen
If
that we
you-
can do that?
We have. Sterling Gregory has made a beautiful design, and we've got designs for all the medals this year from Sterling. If you go to elefest.com or to Dunbar T-shirt shop, you can get you can buy a T-shirt direct and support this year's championships.
It'll help make it
And
happen if
that would
people
be
get there.
it will actually,
and
yeah.
It'll help make sure it
Yeah.
happens. And
Yeah. And if you feel like you want to leave a wee donation at Elefest, there is a donate button. But if you get your T-shirt and just come along and enjoy the festival, that's the most important thing about it. Learn some new skills and just enjoy the experience. That's what we're here for.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Wow, amazing.
Okay, will do.
When I thought about putting this episode together, I was thinking about the inspiration episode, and that's before we thought of talking to you, James. But I mean,
That's
wow.
just hit the inspiration episode
It
right
did,
on there.
yeah.
You are a force of
Knocked it out
nature.
of the park.
Thank
You
you.
are one of the most passionate people that I know. And I just thank you for coming and talking to us today, and for all that you
It's
do
a pleasure.
for everyone, because it really is such a force for good. Those ripples of kindness that you talk about, they go far and wide. You've touched a lot of people. So
Well, without all
really
yous, I couldn't do it. So
appreciated.
you never know when you're making history, and let's keep making history. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, James. I think that's a really good place to wind up this episode of the podcast, the Inspiration Podcast, with our special guest, James Craig. I can't even speak. James
You've
Craig
been on the
Page.
sauce, mate.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, friends. Love yous. Cheers.
So there's been a little gap since the last episode, but now we've got the ball rolling again. We'll try and organise a few more for you. So tune in again for the next episode of the Earth Art TV podcast. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.